Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Spokane City Council study session for today. We're going to have part 2 of our conversation with the boards from CHHS and COC. And then we're going to have a presentation from Dave Anderson from the Department of Commerce. We had a great session a few weeks ago with this group. And I invited by email if the administration wanted to give any updates on these issues before I turned it back over to Council Members Kinnear and Wilkerson to keep the panel discussion going. So, Kirsten, I don't know if there's anything that you want to update on people on or not, but I just wanted to create that space if there was anything.
I appreciate that. I wasn't aware of that offer. I think mostly of what, I think most everyone on this group has been receiving those weekly updates, so I don't really want to regurgitate that. Mm-hmm. And I think we can probably answer questions as they are asked or interject unless someone has questions now that I can answer.
Okay. Great. All right. Council members Kinnear and Wilkerson, you've convened this group, so.
Thanks. It was actually Councilmember Stratton, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Councilmember Stratton.
That's okay. Karen, is it okay if I just set us up a little bit here?
Go for it.
Yeah. So we had this meeting a month or so ago, and at the end of the meeting, we gathered a lot of information. We learned a lot of what was and was not happening. And this meeting that we're having today is our meeting to find out what has changed, what kinds of steps going forward has the administration made, what are the takeaways. Are we further ahead on more beds? Do we have a plan? What is the plan? So all the questions that we had at the first meeting, I would expect should be answered at this meeting. And I was told that Eric Finch was going to be, I don't see him, and then Marlene Feist, I don't see her either. And Kristen, I think you're it as far as, and I understand people have been receiving updates. We are still, it's freezing out, and we are still not aware that there are additional beds that are being supplied, low barrier beds. So Karen, if you want to chime in and add to that, that'd be great.
The other question, or what's out in my mind, is last Friday, Councilmember Wilkerson and I sat in on interview with a potential director of CHHS, and I was just wondering, I hadn't gotten a lot of feedback on that, so I was just wondering if anybody might know. Kristen, I don't know if you know or not where that's headed, or so that's one other thing I'd like to put out there.
Sure. So I can touch on a couple of those things. We did meet with the VOA and the operational staff for Hope House. The women's beds are definitely a challenge for us in the system. They have a beautiful new building and with lots of capacity there. They are having significant staffing issues. And so we talked yesterday about, how we can assist in that. They just like everybody else, they're challenged with hiring. This work is very difficult, and it doesn't pay much more than minimum wage, and it's very, very challenging work. So they are working to get more staff on board. They've already increased their bed count by 10 this week alone, and they expect for that to incrementally go up throughout the rest of the month. We shared with them different tools that we can add from, and this applies to any provider, because I think everyone is in the same position of challenged with the hiring, with the job market out there, and that putting together a campaign about the rewarding work of this and the need. and then also some assistance that we can provide from a grant perspective for incentives for folks to come on board. So that is in the works. I think Eric was planning on going more in depth with that particular, upcoming what we're doing for the winter. And as soon as he is able to join us, I think he can give additional information. In terms of Friday and the panel interviews, there were 2 panels, one for external stakeholders, which I see familiar faces on this call or on this meeting, as well as what Councilmember Stratton mentioned, did meet with a potential candidate for the NHHS director position, and also an internal panel with internal staff from the CHHS department and others. That is being, the feedback from that is currently being reviewed, and there isn't an update as of this point.
Council President, if I could also, we were also, I've got an echo, sorry. Kristen, lost my train of thought, sorry. I'll get back to it. Go ahead, Council
I was
President.
just going to interrupt, Kirsten. Is Eric Finch planning on being on this call? So I thought he was. So.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
he anticipated 11:15 when he texted me.
Ah, okay.
Could I ask, has there been any talk, we've hearing rumors flying around about private businesses funding shelter space, and there is no substantiation to that. As far as I know, what is the city learning about that, or what does the city know about that?
Yeah, I have not been in those conversations. That's going to have to be something that Eric can speak to. I've been handling a different side of information.
I can add, Councilmember Kinnear, that last night, Ben Stuckert and myself participated in a homeless forum, I think that's what we'd call it, Ben, with Chris Patterson, who used to work with CHHS internally. He's now working with Washington Trust Bank. We didn't get a lot of detail, but and no timeline, unless I missed something, Ben can fill us in. But it sounds to me like they're moving forward with businesses and, trying to make that happen. But we didn't, Ben, did you get any kind of a timeline on that? I know I didn't.
Well, I don't think we got any specifics last night. It was a little frustrating.
Yeah. They're out there, and it seems like he's making connections in the community, but that's about all we heard.
Council President, I saw Fawn on the line. Could VOA speak to their total capacity if they were fully staffed? What would that look like?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah. Go ahead, Fawn.
Great. Sorry, I had to call in, so I'm having some audio challenges with WebEx. So we have if we're fully staffed, we have the capacity to serve 80 emergency shelter beds at Hope House. We are currently running in kind of that 40 to 50 range, just sheer based off of staffing. And I'll be honest, we get $79,000 from the city every year for Hope House. That's it. We've been flat funded. We're flat funded in the 5-year RFP. The only extra money we have is about $200,000 from CARES money. Our money gap filled us through December 31. We don't have, starting January 1, we will not have funding to move forward, to stay open. And we're paying our folks minimum wage, and we cannot recruit. And when they get there, we can't hold them. And the fund, I love the fact that we can get creative with COVID dollars. Our fear is that those are only good through June 30, and then we start all over again. I think we have a system challenge that we want this work to happen, and we feel like it's important to happen, but we refuse to pay for it. So we're really hitting in this kind of barrier. We're doing the best I can. I'll tell you, it breaks my team's heart to have empty beds in a shelter. We didn't build a shelter to have empty beds. It's incredibly painful to do that, but I can't risk the safety of my staff to have 1 or 2 people with 80 women, and if one thing goes awry, we put at risk the safety of all of those women as well as my team members. Sorry to share the grim news, but we're doing our best.
Council President, could I ask Fawn one more question, and that would be, is there a way to collaborate with some of the other service providers and either share staff or have some kind of arrangement where if they're not needing staff that you could, I don't want to use the term borrow, but I don't know what other term to use. So there's more of a collaboration between service providers so we're not siloed and that we can share resources and thus serve the community a little better.
We have talked to all of our existing providers about a shared staffing model and have not been able to get that to come to fruition.
Part of the problem, Lori, is every agency right now has the same staffing problems. It's not just isolated to Hope House. The COC just finished approving the rankings for funding moving forward for next year, and we gave COLAs to agencies, and I found out that was the first time agencies had received COLAs since 2013. So when the city had previously done, and the COC had previously done renewals, they just asked agencies to renew at the same cost, even if money was tacked on, like there was 5% extra tacked on by HUD this year. So since 2013, agencies have been asked to do the same work for the exact same amount of dollars when we know that at a minimum we have inflationary costs of 2% per year over the last 8 years. And so every agency that I know of in the homeless system and in the housing system has been asked for 8 years in a row to deal with the dollar when the dollar is only worth 80 cents. So it's a problematic system we got right now.
Can I speak to Fawn and kind of what she's dealing with right now from
Yes.
my perspective as a service provider?
Go ahead, Jennifer.
So, I run the domestic violence housing program with the YWCA, which includes our 24-hour helpline. And I can tell you from firsthand experience how many single women we are referring out of our services because we are full. And I know we're referring them to Hope House, knowing that they probably don't have space right now. And this is just critical funding. And speaking to the staffing levels, last week I posted our relief advocates who are kind of like our subs that come in. I had to post with a $5 an hour night shift differential just to get candidates to even apply for that shift. So, just speaking to other programs and their staffing challenges, there's nobody to spare. I am also running on a skeleton crew, which is extremely difficult on that crew, not having adequate staffing to meet the needs. So I just want to pipe in that other agencies are feeling the effects of Hope House not being funded for those critical beds for our single women in this community. It's terrible. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I think
Go ahead.
I think one thing that we've done systematically as a community is we've invested heavily in new shelter beds, and we have funded those at 100%. So new shelter beds are getting adequate funding. They're able to pay their staff $20 an hour. But when we have certain shelters that have been here a long time and we're on archaic funding cycles, we get $79,000. I can't fundraise that. I cannot fundraise that in the community. I can't build enough respite beds to build an enterprise model to fund this. We have a system challenge, and we certainly would like to come to the table to solve it, but we really need a sustainable solution not a, I can't say we get COVID money and I'm going to give my staff a raise of $3 and then take it away from them in June. I can't do that.
Thanks, Fawn, for sharing. Even though that's challenging news, it's helpful, at least for myself, to understand that. And I was not clear on that until just a few minutes ago, so thank you. Eric Finch has joined us, and Eric, I think you're able to give us some updates since the last time we met with this group of what the city's plans are going into winter for low barrier beds, since we're down at least 100 beds from June, and other plans and ideas that the administration has and updates.
Sure. Thank you. And it just kind of finished a good hour plus of the Homeless Coalition. So it was good. And Dale, good to see you there as well. So yes, and so I think in the overall system sense, we continue to kind of look at both capacity and availability. Certainly being part of the conversation as it relates to I think the staffing challenges is timely and good conversation. We are trying to join all those conversations to make sure we have, I think, better situational awareness, and looking at how I think things like hazard pay and other categories that are in available funding streams can be leveraged. I think that the sustainability piece of it is, I think, as Fawn and others represent, is an important part of this. Now, it's interesting because at least in the COC sense, again, unbeknownst to me, but I guess it was like the first time ever that we'd actually put in COLAs for some of those, ongoing renewal projects. And so what I would certainly suggest is that as we continue to look at the system holistically, we need to start building some of that COLA type mentality into any of the funding streams or contracts or otherwise that we're going to do. That doesn't necessarily help us with what's in there today, but that's certainly, I think, something that's noteworthy for future planning. For the ones that are there today, what I would suggest, and this is why we're kind of trying to enter and be part of those conversations in an ongoing sense as a city, is just to identify where we have those kind of system weaknesses in terms of staffing and or rates. And then looking at the funding streams that those are tied to see if there's any flexibility to potentially add. And again, I use hazard pay as one of those things that's noted in at least the grant funding that we have access to today, whether that be ESG, CV, or some of the others that specifically call out that additional kind of add to pay type capability. Again, that can help us in the short term, but that doesn't necessarily get us to the long-term sustainability, and certainly that causes, I think, the shelters some challenges, because even if we can give them a little bit more today, which is good and maybe necessary, that doesn't solve the long-term problem. So I just add that as additional commentary for that, because I think that's a two-part problem. I think we need to activate something now, and we'll take steps to look at that, in the short term. But then we also need to concurrently plan for, whatever systemic type improvements that we need to, through whatever, kind of grant or resource means that we're doing today for those programs. Since those are often tied, to federal or state grant sources, that's where I would need to work with staff to make sure that we know, the right way that those can be activated. So I think moving on from that, I know this is provoking its own set of questions, and I'm happy to kind of, address those as we need to, but certainly we've been trying to kind of move to a more year-round look at sheltering versus just winter sheltering capacity. And so I guess I start there because I'm not trying to say that we're not mindful about the fact that it's getting colder or otherwise, but we're certainly trying to kind of add things to the system at multiple levels that are meant to kind of, improve the overall system. And so whether it be the way out shelter or otherwise, with that transitional, kind of type housing model, those are meant to be kind of overall system improvements, not necessarily just in response to, the winter or cold conditions. The challenge for that as those beds have migrated out of the low barrier space is, it'll be a referral-based model largely, and there is some anticipation that those, 60 beds will free up some number of low barrier spaces but we'll not know that, right, until we have, some data and some experience, after that shelter opens. So it's hard to predict or plan for that per se, but certainly that's one of the outcomes that we're looking at. As we continue to review the capacity report piece, in a day-to-day sense and take notes with staff, then we are certainly seeing weaknesses in the family side and the women spaces as the primary, I think capacity or availability issues that we're seeing. And so what we're currently working on that's kind of like in the RFP draft stage is, areas that potentially prioritize those type of additional space needs, but meant, I guess, in some ways to be more of a kind of expansion or surge capacity, not necessarily another, full 100-bed space at a larger facility. We're not against that, but the way we're trying to write this instrument is to be able to kind of look at both, I think, macro as well as micro solutions. And so just as I read and learn this process, we're also looking at, okay, how can smaller spaces be activated across a number of different, providers and smaller, organizations that each maybe have 3 or 4 or 5 spaces versus, larger spaces, and can that be part of the ecosystem or the solution path? So we're looking at a number of options like that we might be able to activate, and then certainly having one-on-one conversations with many of the providers out there in terms of what might be able to be activated sooner or easier. The other, I guess, part that I would, suggest is that a consistent theme that I've heard in talking with folks as I've been, again, getting educated and doing my one-on-ones to learn is transportation. From that kind of point of street engagement to, to potentially any place that might be available, whether that be during the day or evening. And so in part, this would also look at how we, potentially would resource or provide some type of resource path to help that transportation in a more system-wide versus, specific shelter sense. And this would be, in a more, I think, robust, not just necessarily bus pass means, although, I think trying to figure out how we, better use STA is certainly always going to be part of that transportation discussion. But certainly I think at 2 a.m. in the morning when it's snowing outside and there's a point of engagement, then trying to make sure that there's maybe some facility or way that is under contract, if you will, to get someone from that point of engagement to a safer space. Is I think a system need that at least I'm seeing from my reviews. So those are the things we're looking at, and I guess there's also, when we talk about kind of like pop-up type capabilities, certainly that's part of the budget conversation. As certainly as a joint city administration and council, as we look at ARP funding, that's something that we certainly wouldn't have to wait for the budget cycle per se on, if we can get to some level of, I think, joint agreement or planning on something that would want to activate using those dollars. So, whether that's the sprung shelter or some incantation of that, then that certainly would be another area. So I think in many cases, this planning effort that's ongoing, and like I said, I have a draft, RFP that we're reviewing this week. It's really trying to kind of harvest some of these additional options, especially that give us surge capacity over this next 6 months. But that to me is still a stopgap solution. It doesn't necessarily improve the overall system. Please.
So a couple things. First of all, I just want to get back to Kristen's comment about how they can partner with providers around a campaign of this doing good work. And that's a great thing. But the people who do this work already know that it's good work. We just can't compensate them for their value. That's really the underlying issue. And I'm speaking as a provider who hire the people that we're talking about. So really, it's a livable wage. I guess I'm a little challenged, Eric, because I still haven't heard really the plan for the winter for these additional beds. I know the administration has spoke of this pop-up structure. It sounds great. but there is no location. And even when a location is found, that will be 8 weeks. 8 weeks will put us in January. So at this point, we'll be halfway through the winter with no additional bids. And I think that's a big concern for providers and myself as a council. So I know we got a long-term plan, but we need a short-term plan, and we are waiting to hear what that looks like.
So yes, and I guess, like I said, I mean, and you know, I guess we just have not been calling it a winter plan because we've been trying to look at overall kind of shelter system improvement. So I apologize if I'm not, you know, hitting the nail on the head. I think that the short answer, council member, is that I think this RFP that we're looking at now in terms of these additional capacity needs is that short-term, you know, type focus, or at least that thing that we'll be looking at over these next 6 months. I agree. You know, the pop-up piece, you know, is more that medium or longer term, and then potentially maybe that more sustainable, you know, longer term, you know, year-to-year, you know, funding item that we do as a city. So what I can't, you know, give you right now is because we haven't been able to finalize this and put it on the street and get the right feedback from you know, the providers and those out in the community is exactly what those additional tools are. Now, I mean, I think that the way we're trying to do this is to get back many options, both at the micro and I guess the more macro level, and that would include, you know, expansion of hotel voucher, you know, type you know, capabilities as well. Because the emphasis is trying to find something that is a little bit easier and a little bit more, I guess, amoeba-like in terms of, you know, being able to kind of have many people contribute to the solution versus just, you know, kind of all our you know, kind of hopes or plans in, you know, one additional space that has, you know, 100 beds, because in many cases that is also one of the most challenging to set up and to provision the wraparound services for. So that's what we're trying to get out, you know, within this next, you know, few days and week, and then I would certainly, you know, want to do as quick a turn on that as we can. In the meantime, what we're looking at specifically in terms of continuation of you know, what I think the county started in terms of whether it be, you know, voucher-related programs or otherwise, is making sure that there's continuous, you know, funding and capability there. So at least in the, you know, the cold snap type pieces of it, that there is at least, you know, some solutions as we continue to build out others. So you know, that's about the best I can really kind of give you in a broad sense today, other than it is something that we're working on every day.
Councilmember Kinnear.
Eric, can you tell us, the last meeting we had, CHHS department was decimated. Can you tell us if headway has been made in hiring people, and if so, how many and which vacancies are still present?
Sure, and I think some positive, you know, some positive outcomes there. The director level, you know, interviews, as I know several of you participated, you know, have continued and to a degree will be ongoing. On the staff side, you know, we've filled the administrative position, and that person whose name is Kim started this week. So that will start, and so we're starting in training mode and onboarding mode for that individual. You know, that gives us, I think, that good, administrative continuity, you know, in the office there on the 6th floor. We've also, you know, had acceptance of 3 positions on the program specialist side, and right now, you know, we're still talking with senior staff in terms of the exact alignment and onboarding plans. But you know, we largely see them, you know, oriented towards kind of the you know, one towards kind of the home and housing, you know, side. We see one working on the youth initiatives, and we see you know, one that would be, you know, I think more stitched in to the boards, COC and CHHS, and that's just for those first 3. And the reason for that is that we have you know, brought out of, you know, kind of retirement in a part-time sense, like Matt Davis that's helping on YHDP and some of the youth initiatives, and that would give him a person now that he can cross-train and get up to speed, along with Julius, from the United Way, so we have some continuity and ongoing kind of program management, for our youth programs, which we certainly see as a priority for the city. With kind of the home and the housing piece, that would give us a resource, and we have Melora Schartz, that's going to be coming back and helping us part-time from the subject matter expertise, and to also train that new individual. So again, we can have, I think, a little bit better of a training depth for these new staff coming on, because the internal expertise potentially isn't there in some of these very, very specific areas. And then for the COC piece, and CHHS boards and the board support, then that would be kind of a little bit more universal, and certainly working with a lot of you all in terms of getting those resources up to speed. So those are kind of, those people are going to start, I think it's like the 15th, the 16th, and the 22nd of November. And Kirsten can correct me if I've gone astray there.
Yeah, so just one little clarification. There's 3 program professionals coming on, one on the 15th, one on the 16th, and then one on the 29th. Yeah.
Adrienne has her hand up first, and then I see Councilmember Stratton and Wilkerson. Go ahead, Adrienne.
Thank you. And just for those who don't know, I'm the chair of the current chair of the CHHS board. And I appreciate that in a moment like this, that the triage is focusing on homelessness and homelessness services. But I just also want to make sure that we keep recalling that at the same year as the RFPs were put out around those services, they were also put out more broadly. So we have a number of service providers that, because of the staffing issues, we have not been able to do our due diligence and do evaluations and look at metrics to determine whether we should continue funding or whether we should increase funding, let alone not even talking about cost of living adjustments. And so Fawn, I appreciate you sharing that with us. And, this is a system-wide problem, and we tend to focus very narrowly, but we have no idea how things are going in those programs that we funded a couple of years ago. And it was the intent that our RFP and evaluation committee would be doing these evaluations at least once a year, and they have yet to do any of these evaluations. So we don't know if the money is being spent, how well it's being spent, if things need to be adjusted. As a board, we don't have any of that information at this point, and that's really concerning.
Council President, let me know if you want me to answer them or wait until you. Okay.
No, go ahead.
So thank you, Adrienne, and we're likewise have some of these same concerns, and part of this is obviously just staffing level for us as well, right? So I'm not trying to demonize any part of that, but I believe we owe you that better information, and to a large degree that information does exist. Again, when I go and start digging in and asking, we can get to to some of that root level information. It's just not been, I think, provided and reported, and I think those functions or processes that were maybe in place and maybe not in place the way they needed to be, just need to be improved and restarted as necessary. So I think trying to get to, I think, whether it be, we've talked about dashboards obviously for homelessness, but there's a couple of different prongs for this, and we're certainly mindful about the fact that the housing conversation, is as vibrant and as important as the human services piece is. I would remind all of us that we've gone from, I think 3 or 4 years ago, we were talking about 1,500 zombie homes that banks couldn't get rid of, to the environment we are in today with, what kind of 30% increases year over year. So that affordable housing piece of it is certainly, of increasing priority today, than it ever was. So I think that what I would ask for is, I think, if you can give me that frame of what information or what type of report out you would like to see, then we'll take that on board and figure out how to produce it. Because I think in many cases, like I said, I think that information is there, but maybe we're just not, we've either fallen out of the habit, or maybe weren't in the habit the way we needed to produce that information on a quarterly basis, monthly basis, or whatever it is. We've had the same conversation with the COC in terms of, I think some of their monitoring and reporting. So I'm not, I'll own that, but I probably will also need some help in knowing exactly what that needs to look like for you all.
And I'm going to call on Councilmember Stratton, then Wilkerson, and then Ben Stucker.
Thank you. So first, I want to thank Eric for all your help in this. You jumped in and you've taken all this on, and I know this is a difficult subject, and you're doing a good job, and we do appreciate it because I know this isn't easy. I do have to say that I'm disappointed today that this is to me, this is a very important meeting to the community. It's an important meeting. And I'm disappointed that we don't have the mayor or the city administrator here. So I had to say that just because to me, it's that elephant in the room. But the second point is that if we go to bed, if we go to sleep next Monday and temperatures drop below 0, we wake up and we start answering phone calls. And those phone calls are from people who are seeing people on the street, seeing people not able to find beds. So what is the immediate plan? Or is there a deadline to have a plan in place? Because we know that weather's coming. So I guess I'm a little more uptight about what we know is going to happen in the next few days and where are we going to have people go to be safe. I know there's long-term planning and all of that that's going on, and I know that's intricate work, but for me, my anxious level is way up because we get those calls, and we try and help people get where they need to be, but at this point, it'd be great to have a plan or phone numbers or something that we know who's going to be open, what the protocol is, and I'm just hoping we can get something.
Yeah, and I understand all, and thank you for the words, and just realize that I'm here to serve and just trying to be that best representative for the team that's doing some incredibly hard work, as I think you all know. I think that I owe you that, and it's just the same thing that Councilmember Kinnear has said before you, and Councilmember Wilkerson. We owe you that next pieces to help add capacity, especially those areas where we're seeing weakness, and I think that we're all seeing the same thing. So I need to get it off of my desk, right, in terms of qualitative review. I've had both Margaret Hinson and Sarah Nuss working on that in terms of trying to get that ready. And so I think that really it's getting that out and getting some of the provider feedback, in terms of what's in the realm of possible. The minimum, as I suggest, is expansion of voucher-based things or otherwise, because they're just a little bit quicker to activate, especially for things like families. But that's certainly not the total solution.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Probably
keep going.
About bus passes too at some point. Councilmember Mum and Kinnear, maybe that's something we can jump into when that happens, that we can get some bus passes for people.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
I'll jump in.
Go ahead, Councilmember Mum.
SDA has a funding model, and bus passes are not something that they can just give out. They have federal requirements, as you know, and there are ways to supply them or purchase at a lower amount, and many of our partners at the city have worked with them to do it, but it is not a quick response necessarily, and it is not necessarily easy. So it usually, if we have the funding for it, we can buy them. And that's the quickest way to do it. But I don't know if there's anything in particular set up for this fall. I'm not on that committee. Maybe Councilmember Kinnear, do you know of anything set up for fall, winter?
Nothing.
With agencies?
Nothing.
So we need to find funding for transportation if that's something. Maybe we can hear from the agencies if they have heard of any program.
Councilmember Wilkerson, I don't know if you still had a comment or question, and then Mr. Stuckert after that.
Thank you. I do. So I just want to circle back. First of all, affirm Councilmember Kinnear. Eric, I'm in this arena as a provider, and it's not easy work, and for you jumping in off the deep end, I applaud you. When you spoke of the hires, are those project people or they on loan? So are these temporary people just to get the department up and running? That was one. And then when Adrian spoke of the compliance piece, Adrian, is that just 1 year or has this been several years? So it's a systemic issue, the follow up on what goes out the door. So we just can't place that on COVID related issues. Okay, so that answers that. So Eric, I guess back to the employment piece of people you mentioned.
So it's all of the above, Councilmember Wilkerson. The four that we spoke about in terms of admin and the program professionals are all full-time city staff. To help, in terms of, significantly, right? That's four new people, as I think you can imagine, with a team that was at 22 and down to 10 or 11. Getting those four additional people on board is extraordinary. Comes with some other challenges, right? Because now those folks have to be onboarded and trained and those type of things, which can take away obviously some capacity from the current things you're trying to get done with with the number of staff. That's why that some of these temp seasonal positions have also been hired using expertise that the city's had in the past to help basically be part of that training piece. So we're not necessarily having to pull someone out of their normal duties to help train that new individual. We can use Matt Davis or Melora Sharts in that capacity to help do that training, and they'll certainly have that expertise to be able to pass on. So we found that it can be a pretty elegant solution to leverage some of the past expertise that past staff have had. We're also employing, contract staff. I mean, we've got like IT staff that are helping on the CMIS side to help again shore up some of the short-term pieces that we need to. Dusty with the PMO has been helping out. We're going to have a project coordinator that's going to come on board to help get ready and plan for the point in time count, so that we aren't behind on that or trying to kind of jump through hoops at the last minute to get that important activity done. So it is really a mixture of those resourcing strategies right now until we get the rest of the people on board. The other part, this is what it is. I'm not saying we have to like it, by any means, but I think the focus, obviously, for me for the last couple of months has really been triage and kind of the most important fires that we've had to do. I think we all know that the policy and planning piece of this is what's going to lead to future success, and we need to do that better. And to Adrian's point, as well as many of us, I mean, part of that needs to be increasingly better data and information that we can review and be part of the cyclical kind of governance pieces. And certainly, I think having more of these type of venues, and what I think is interesting about this, and Councilmember Stratton, I mean, you might have to blame me for this. If I was supposed to pass on the invite for the Mayor and Johnny, I did not do so, and so that might just be on me as the problem. But I do know that we've been talking in parallel here, like between myself and Brian Coddington and Kirsten, about trying to have this same forum, and so I think this is great. And I was just with the mayor at the Homeless Coalition, so she's game. And I think we all believe this is an important conversation to have together.
Ben Stuckert.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ben Stuckert. I'm the chair of the Continuum of Care and also the executive director of the Low Income Housing Consortium. And I just wanted to, reiterate that the weekly communication has been super successful. I've found it very helpful, and I know board members have mentioned to me, so I really appreciate that. Eric, I wish you'd just stay in the CHHS department. You should just switch jobs. From a COC perspective, you jumped in on the NOFA, which is due on November 16th, hired consultants, and have been spending, 7 days a week, because we talk on Saturdays and Sundays about this often. And we talk at 9 p.m. at night and at 7 a.m. in the morning. So I really appreciate it and think, and I know you've been triaging, and the YHDP grant, which I was really worried about a month ago and expressed that. You've hired Matt Davis back, and I think everything is on track on both of those. I'm not going to hammer on the winter plan. I think that council members have concerns with that. I know COC members share the same concerns with, and hopefully we can get enough hotel vouchers out there if the shelter's still up. I can't personally wait till the full staffing just because we have so much in the planning and process. And I think really to go back to Fawn's point on funding, and I think the short-term funding struggles, that then cutting things off and not having a complete homeless plan, and then we talk about the private sector doing shelters, really points out what other communities that have taken homelessness in half have done is the elected officials, both the city and the county, the CHHS board, the COC board, the county board that allocates funds, all the businesses and philanthropy all need to be on one page. And I really think once we get through the emergencies, that needs to be the number one priority of everybody that's in this field, because if we're making decisions based on shelter capacity with just an elected official group over here, but not consulting what the needs are from the providers, we're just completely missing the boat in the long term. And Eric, you and I have talked about that, but I want to reiterate that in this larger crowd, that one community plan and building housing is how you can get ahead of this problem and not see the growth in it. And then just finally, I just say, since I have everybody on this call, and we're talking shelters, is a lot of people spent a lot of time, and council did immense work on 1590, which was a low-income housing levy, and the budget still that came out this week uses low-income housing dollars to build a homeless shelter. And that is absolutely not why the community rallied to pass that and send hundreds of emails and make hundreds of phone calls. And we had 50 people testify on that night. We didn't do it to fund the shelter. It was to fund the long-term preventative solution, not to fund the shelter. And there has to be other dollars if there's going to be another shelter next year in the budget. And I'm just really asking everybody not to spend low-income housing dollars on a shelter, because that's a really poor long-term decision. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and Ben, if I can, because again, I hear all, and again, part of this is me sometimes really learning the funding source pieces of it to make sure that sometimes those right or better connections are made. So we've heard that, and again, I think that as we look at this from a system-wide thing, this is part of the conversation we just had at the Homeless Coalition as well. It's like it's trying to kind of match those right kind of program and funding sources to the right programs, and making sure that that's a community-based plan. That we all have that right level of input into is kind of important. While at the same time, we're shoring up whatever short-term things that we need to is our pressing today.
Diane. Oh,
and you're on mute.
I'm a former CHHS chair, and I was chair when the COC and CHHS were all one entity. And we've talked a lot about homelessness and beds, and I would emphasize my concern about that missing 100 beds and that winter is coming. I don't want to see people freezing to death on the sidewalk. That's kind of my bottom line on that. But I would also echo what Ben has said. We have a low income and middle income and workforce housing crisis that's as equal to the homeless crisis that we have. And they are joined like this. We can't move people out of shelters who want to move into some sort of supportive housing or semi-permanent housing or even transitional housing, because that housing doesn't exist. And when we use the money for low-income housing for shelters, we create more of a problem. And I would just strongly agree with what Ben has said on that we need to pay attention to the housing side equally as much as we're paying to the homeless side. The homeless side is visible. You see people on the street every day, and people complain. With the housing side, you don't see those people, and people don't complain. And the people who suffer with that don't have the wherewithal to write the letters, to come to council meetings, and to vote. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Thanks. I had a quick question, and I don't know if you're in a position to answer it, Eric, but the housing voucher strategy, how is that going to be done? I mean, what's the intake going to be? Is it going to be only limited to families? What's the thinking at this point on how that's going to work?
You know, for the short-term piece,
Yeah.
Council President. So I think that the way we're trying to write this is to prioritize the categories, but not necessarily make it exclusive to the categories. You know, and to a degree, kind of empower the providers, you know, as they're selected to help, you know, manage that, because they're pretty good, at least in the little bit of experience I've had at helping manage, you know, that type of voucher process. So you know, I think the intention is that we would prioritize for families and for women, and then you know, basically continue to add dollars. We have, you know, some funding available for ESG/CV that we can bring to bear for this. That is kind of the target source for that. So I guess that we'd be putting it out there, and we'd be like kind of creating a narrative. And again, I will need some education ongoing in terms of, you know, the 100 beds perspective, because I guess as I look at the capacity reports, I'm trying to learn and understand, you know, the system and where we need to kind of, you know, add capacity. And, you know, because we've obviously added in some categories and certainly lost in some categories. And it's those categories that we've kind of, or that I see the weakness in is primarily, at least from my chair, and understanding the families and women. So that's what we're trying to prioritize, but we're not necessarily going to try to make it exclusive.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So we've probably spent more time than we were scheduled, but super important conversation, and we'll probably reschedule this in another month and get the update. But Councilmember Kinnear.
Thanks. I want to thank all the providers, all the participants, and know that I, for one, am trying to do everything I can to make it easier for you to serve the community that you serve. And if anybody has concerns or questions, please reach out to council, reach out to the administration, let us know. So, Fawn, I had no idea what was going on with you, so please continue to email us or call us, let us know how we can help you. And if we can't, we'll let you know. We'll be brutally honest, but we'll do our darndest to try and get through this and make a dent in what we're seeing right now. Because this is, I've worked for the city since 2008, and since I've been on council, every year is the same. It's the scramble, last minute to get shelter space, and we know winter comes every year. This is not a surprise. We know it gets cold every year. So I am very frustrated by the lack of planning, the lack of a plan, and the lack of action. But I appreciate every one of you participating in this, and I hope we can do this again and see some progress.
Councilmember Mumm.
Just thank you so much for being very frank with us, the providers especially. We share your concern, but you're on the front line, so I know yours is 10 times more realistic. I just wanted to encourage you to ask for a seat at the table to discuss with your other elected officials. I don't know if you have had the same opportunity at the county level, or if you've had the same opportunity at the Spokane Valley level, or even with our legislators. Holding roundtables with them, I think, is really important. As you know, the city of Spokane has had to shoulder most of the financial responsibility for these kinds of services, and we need to continue to bring them in, because as you know, you're not only serving the Spokane County area, you're serving Eastern Washington and in some cases part of North Idaho, and I've heard people as far away as Montana and Oregon coming as well. So we are a regional draw for these kinds of services, and we need assistance. I don't think the city can do it on its own, And so please, if you need help getting meetings with people or setting up this kind of a forum, please reach out to us on the council because we will make those calls on your behalf.
All right, thanks. I want to give special thanks to Councilmember Stratton and Kinnear for organizing this second meeting, and all the providers, and special thanks to Eric Finch and Kirsten Davis for showing up and taking hard questions. We really appreciate that engagement. We'll continue to work on this, and thanks everyone for showing up. We're going to transition now to our second major item, which is a presentation from Dave Anderson from Washington State Department of Commerce. And Kara Odegaard is going to introduce Mr. Anderson.
Hi, thank you, Council President and Council members. Today is our last of the Smart Growth series that Councilmember Mumm and I have been coordinating over the past couple months. The topic today is land use and capital facilities, and I'm happy to introduce our speakers. Dave Anderson, who serves as the Managing Director for the Washington Department of Commerce Growth Management Services Office. Dave has been with the Department of Commerce since 2001, starting as the agency's transportation policy specialist. Dave managed the review and update of the agency's administrative rules implementing the Growth Management Act. Also with us today is Ben Sir, who works for the Department of Commerce as the Eastern Washington Regional Manager. His primary role is working with counties, cities, and towns around planning issues and Growth Management Act requirements. He is currently working on a water systems outreach project related to groundwater depletion in the Mid-Columbia Basin. Both Dave and Ben are located here in Spokane, and I'm happy to welcome you. Dave, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Kara. I'm trying to share my screen here. Can you all see the slides?
We can.
Super. All right. So, as you're probably aware, the periodic update process for the entire state is getting started, and that includes getting started here in Spokane County. And as that process is kicking up, I'd like to start with talking about the relationship between land use and housing and your capital facilities planning, and about how to have a robust conversation around cost and revenue early in that update process, so that you can ask the questions you need to ask about whether particular kinds of development and development in particular places are actually a good deal for the city. So I'm going to start with trying to get the screen to advance. Here we go. I'm going to start with why you have a plan in the first place. And you all can see this. The main things I want to point out is that the plan is not just about what happens 20 years from now. It's really about helping you make good decisions today. And the other thing I want to point out is the relationship between the comprehensive plan you have and the public expectation for transparency and fairness of decisions. So if you're going to require something in a regulation, why is it you require that? If you're making an investment in one part of town versus another, why is that? The factual basis for those decisions and how those relate to the overall priorities, those are things that are located in your comprehensive plan. The kind of analysis you do in your comprehensive plan are really about establishing what your attorney would call the rational basis for the decisions you're making. Why are we doing it? Okay, so it's also about this issue of transparency and fairness that leads to the question of how do you know a good plan from a bad one? And I would propose that there are really three things that a plan must provide. First, it must be compelling. It must really be aiming the city's actions toward your priorities in a way that articulates a long-term vision, but is also flexible and adaptive. Secondly, it must be realistic. It must be something you can actually achieve. That's where the hard analytical work of forecasts and inventories and analysis come together. If a plan's not realistic, either the community is going to lose faith with it, or they will come to regard it as something that's really apart from the data decisions that you make and is not really something to be implemented, but more of a wish list. And lastly, it must be specific enough that it can actually guide your day-to-day decisions. If implementation simply becomes the act of artfully justifying whatever your decision you're making today, then it's not actually helping you achieve your long-term goals. I think a good rule of thumb is that the comprehensive planning process should cause you to confront tough decisions and cause you to confront the long-term consequences of the choices that you're making. And lastly, I think when you're talking about the comprehensive planning process, you're always going to face two inherent tensions in terms of the public expectations. So here's the first one. I'm sure you've heard something like this many times before. The public has an expectation that there is a certainty and a predictability in the process of getting land use approvals. Tell me what I need to do and give me a permit so I can move forward. The second one is, you've probably heard this before too. This affects my neighborhood. I should have a say in that decision. And the public holds both of these values very deeply, but they are in tension. And in Washington State, we have resolved this tension in a particular way, which is that the procedures associated with comprehensive plan decisions, the legislative decisions that you as a council make, there's a very heavy emphasis on deliberation and broad outreach and giving people lots of say in the decision. However, once those decisions are made on the comprehensive plan and on the adoption of the rules, the development regulations, Washington law shifts very quickly to much more emphasis on certainty and predictability and finality of decision. There's clear deadlines in the Local Project Review Act. There's clear limitations on what you can do when you're doing environmental review of a project permit application that says you're not going to revisit underlying decisions about adequate public facilities and the types and intensity of development that occurs. Those decisions are made at the comp plan level, and then those decisions carry forward. They're not to be revisited at the permit counter. So that what that means is some of these fundamental questions, it's really important that you make the hard choices and you do rigorous analytical examination of the financial decisions that you're making when you're authorizing a comprehensive plan amendment. You need to be underwriting that, because once those decisions are made, that is a commitment that you're making to provide that with the infrastructure necessary, and there's not a good opportunity under Washington law to walk those back at the permit counter. So one of the things you heard a few days ago is you heard Secretary Millar, and he talked a lot about revenue per acre as a really critical indicator of the financial productivity of a community's land use pattern. And I'm going to talk to you why that per acre part is really critical. And it's really because that's how you buy cities. You don't buy cities by the unit, you buy cities by the acre. The size of the city's capital facility footprint drives its cost much more than incremental increases of the number of people. So let's assume this is the part of town that you've already developed, okay? And you're looking at adding a new piece to your service area. This could be your water service area, it could be your sewer service area, it could be an annexation decision. This is the area that you'd be adding to the area that you have responsibility for. So if this is going to have some homes are going to be built on it, the city's going to need to respond with this, and this line, you could think of it as the road, but it's really more than just the road. It's the linear features that you put in place, the sidewalk, the sewer, the stormwater, but it's also things like police, fire, and school buses. Those are driven by basically the same dynamics. You may remember a few years ago, the city was looking at it's fire stations. And I remember reading the article, and it was talking about which fire stations can we open and which ones can we close. The ones that were getting closed actually had more calls, but you had to keep the others open because they were serving an area and you needed to maintain response time. So response time was really driving the need for the stations more than call volume was. That's a really good illustration of the dynamic that means that you're buying your city by the acre. So let's imagine there's a retail establishment that's coming in, and we'll even imagine that the retail establishment has basically paid for these roads on your behalf. Okay, the retail developer has built the roads, made the upgrades, turned them over to you. They're now yours. They're brand new. Okay, you now own them. You got them for free. So a while later, maybe this retail establishment closes. I'm sure you probably drove by something like this not too long ago here in town. There's one of these. There's a few of these not too far from my house. And this place is closed. It's not generating any retail activity. It's not adding a new opportunity to shop or do business to any of the surrounding neighborhoods. It's not providing any jobs. It's vacant. You still own these roads, okay? You're still plowing these roads this winter, okay? So you've got carrying costs associated with this, okay? Regardless of whether this is actually on the market doing anything. Also remember that these roads are free, but this development is also reliant on this road too to connect it with the rest of the larger community. So the further out from the center a new urban area is, the more it relies on the investments you've already made. Okay? So you can't simply walk away from this to fund this, okay? Because this doesn't work unless this works too. All right?
Dave, I'm going to jump in here. It's Candace.
Okay.
Your pointer is not showing up. So
I'm sorry.
You're talking about the connector road.
I'm
right?
talking about the connector road. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize
That's
you
okay.
couldn't see my pointer. Can you see my pointer now? All right. I was working off the wrong.
Dave, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Councilmember Cathcart. Hey, so the scenario you're describing makes sense, except the one thing that's missing, I guess, that I'm wondering about is you said that the area is built out, and now we're talking about expansion. So if you have what we're facing, a housing crisis where you don't have enough housing built, and you're not changing your infill rules to accommodate more housing, and then you're not going to consider an expansion, you're kind of stuck. So can you address that from your perspective?
Sure. So this represents just what you're talking about, Councilmember Cathcart. This is infill. And one thing you'll see is you've already paid for the road. Okay, you're already on the hook to maintain that road. So the relative cost effectiveness of producing a new housing unit in an area where that's already inside your footprint is quite a bit more cost effective than if you have to add a new area. So the marginal cost of supplying infrastructure to infill is lower than the marginal cost of applying it out on the fringe. So
I hear you say that,
yeah.
But the piece that I'm wondering about is, as you said, this scenario, we're built out, which means you have to make infill changes to your code most likely to accommodate denser development, taller development, some new type of development in that infill area. And if the city is not willing to entertain those changes to accommodate the necessary new housing that you need, then is not your only other option to expand.
I would propose that making the changes necessary to enable infill is a better strategy than expanding.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's what I would propose. And that goes not just for new houses at a relatively small scale, but also rethinking about how you make better use of larger commercial sites. because you've got carrying costs associated with large commercial sites. I think that another take home is that when you see a proposal that contains free infrastructure, free infrastructure is not like a free car, it's more like a free puppy. That will be yours, and that will be your, and you will have to maintain that on an ongoing basis. So it's important when you're thinking about the cost of infrastructure, even if you're getting it for free up front, you have to think about the life cycle cost of maintaining that infrastructure. So the planning decisions that you make are really not one decision, it's really a set of nested decisions. And today I want to talk particularly about when you've got your comprehensive plan, your capital facilities, and your development regulations. These are the two primary tools that you're going to use to implement your plan. The investment decisions you make and the regulations you adopt. And the critical thing about getting project development that is actually consistent with the plan is making sure that you're using these two tools in tandem and that you're working them together and that the decisions you make on development regulations are reflective of your capital facility investments and that you're making your capital facility investments in a way that complement what you're doing with your development regulations. So when you look at a comprehensive plan, this is what it's going to have. You've got a series of goals and policies that decide and sort of define what it is that you're looking for. And then you've got sort of the analytical work associated with inventories, analysis and conclusions. This is when you're going to be looking at the kind of development patterns that are actually coming out of the development regulations you have in place and starting to ask yourself, are we getting what we wanted? Okay, and if not, if we're not getting the kind of development in the locations we want and that we can afford, what is it that we would actually do about it? How are we going to change what we're doing? What strategies and commitments do we need to do in order to achieve a development pattern that more closely resembles what we're after? And in the capital facilities plan in particular, this is what the requirements look like. This is what you'll find if you look at the statute on capital facility planning, and you'll find this in all of your capital facility plans, and this applies to both your water system and sewer system plan, but also to your transportation plan, okay? Starts with an inventory. What do we have in place today? What do we think is going to happen? What are the dynamics that we need to manage that are outside of our control? Okay, that's the forecast part. Okay, if you can control it, you decide it. If you can't control it, but you need to manage it, you forecast it. That's the purpose of a forecast. Those things together identify what are your system needs. What actual projects do we need to handle maintenance and system preservation, to address any existing deficiencies with our system, and also to handle new growth. And then, last but not least, a financing plan that demonstrates how we're going to pay for it. And one of the things I want to leave with you in particular is that it's important to really pay attention to that finance plan. The GMA requires that your capital facilities plans are resource constrained, okay? That means you know not only what does it cost to implement the plan, but you've had a thorough conversation about how are we going to pay for it? What are the revenue sources? What's our tax base? What do we anticipate it's going to be? And are those two things in balance? And if not, there's a reassessment requirement. So this is really about building feedback loops into your comprehensive planning process. So if you find that the growth strategy you have in front of you is not financially realistic, it doesn't pencil, as you may hear, for the city, how do we readjust that and how do we find a growth strategy that actually does pencil out? So the identification of system needs, this is really where projects come from. And if you talk to a public works director, you'll find that most of them spend a tremendous amount of their time in financial packaging. So your identification of system needs that talks about existing deficiencies, system preservation, and needs resulting from new growth, those all together result in your system needs. And this is really where projects come from, okay? When your public works department is scoping out developing individual projects that they're going to build, they have to go back to this identification of system needs, because one of the things that drives is it drives what funding sources can we actually use to finance a particular project. Some grant and load programs won't cover new growth. They'll only cover either existing deficiencies or system preservation. Other funding sources like impact fees or system development charges, those are designed to handle new growth, and you're really not supposed to use those to cover existing deficiencies, to cover maintaining the system you already have, because there's not a real connection between the need for that project and the particular development that is paying that fee. So that's why the system needs that connects the underlying needs to the individual project is really a critical part of the financing system. And one of the things you'll hear is that it's really critical that you pay first for preserving your existing system, because every new thing that you build in your system, in order for that to properly function and meet its needs, it's predicated on the existence of the system that's already there, okay? The new sewer line has to connect to a lift station, has to connect to an interceptor, has to connect to the treatment plant that's already there, okay? Those have to be maintained, or the new sewer line isn't going anywhere. So you've probably seen this before, and I don't have any clear numbers on here because this varies from system to system. Roads are going to have different optimum points than water lines and sewer lines, but this curve is a curve that looks pretty much like this is going to play out everywhere, which is there's going to be a point where the condition of the facility is going to drop off really fast. And if you delay system preservation investments past that point, the cost of rebuilding the system starts to go up very quickly. So there's this optimum preservation point. And in your asset management system, you should probably be identifying what that optimum preservation point is. And your first priority should be making sure that you're preserving the systems you have at that optimum point, okay? Because if you wait past that, the overall cost of your maintaining your system goes up really, really fast because you're out in here. So when we talk about financing, it's important to think about what are the cost drivers, okay? There's two things that create financial problems for cities faster than anything else. One of them is bad forecasting of either costs or revenues, and the other one is bad cost modeling, not knowing or misperceiving what it costs to actually provide the service, okay? So there's your fixed costs. What does it cost to turn the system on, to provide that first unit of service? And in practice, it's often not just one piece of the system, but there's lumpy investments, okay? So a new lift station, for example, that's a big lumpy investment, okay? The cost to connect the first home to that lift station is driven by the cost of that lift station. That's a fixed cost, okay? The average cost is simply the cost of the whole system divided by the number of connections, let's say, in the system. A lot of times your rates are driven by average cost, and there's a pitfall associated with average cost. And it's that because it's the average, providing service to some connections costs you less than average. Providing service to other connections is going to cost you more than average. That means some people are underpaying and some people are overpaying, and economics tends to favor those things are underpaying. So you get more of the things that you want that underpay, and you get less of the things that overpay. And that's just a natural economic tendency, and it's a pitfall associated with average cost pricing, because you tend to get more of the things that are more expensive and less of the things that are less expensive, and your average cost tends to creep up unnecessarily. The marginal cost is the cost of providing that next unit of service, okay? And it's driven not only by its connection, but it's driving very profoundly, as we saw before, by the location. So it's very critical that you keep in mind what is the marginal cost of serving a particular connection based on its location. And that's really extension costs. What does it cost to open up a new area? And lastly, as we already talked about carrying costs. What does it cost for something to be in the ground that you own, even if it's not being used? That's a carrying cost. So these are kind of the different ways to think about revenue streams. There's rates that sort of cover the ongoing cost of a system. There's the cost to connect, sometimes system development charges, impact fees, SEPA mitigation. Those are all the upfront costs associated with connecting. And then you've got things like sales tax and property tax that are sort of your overall tax base. And it's important to know when you're looking at a particular development, how much revenue are we actually going to be getting from that development, and what's the marginal cost, and what is the cost it's going to take to provide that. So when you're seeing an area or you're thinking about a new type of development, it's really critical that you're asking these questions, because that is how you go about underwriting the financial decisions you're making that are inherent in the land use decision that you're making. And that's where you can start thinking financially about the trade-offs of different development patterns.
A quick question,
Councilman Mum.
Dave.
Yeah.
I haven't seen impact fees in a long time. We have some for transportation in the city, but do you see impact fees out here in Eastern Washington?
They're pretty rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not something we ever really rely on, but I just thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah. Yeah, most jurisdictions out here tend to use SEPA. Mostly that's traditional because the rate of development has been so slow that you tend to accumulate that slower. So doing it using SEPA substantive authority is generally more common. But the fundamental dynamic is the same. Impact fees are a way to sort of do it at scale a little easier. But one of the things that means is that you should be looking at refining how you charge things like system development charges by location. Are you going to charge a connection fee or an impact fee the same for something that's an existing urban area that's already close in versus something that's out on the fringe? Okay, I believe your impact fees are lower in downtown. That's a good example of adjusting the fee to be reflective of locational differences in actual cost. Another thing that you can look at parking, okay? Because requiring parking is going to tend to increase the amount of demand it places on the road system. If you don't require parking in a particular place, the market's going to make parking anyway. But that's going to be a private decision that the developer makes as to how much parking. And the market's going to demand some, but it gives them an opportunity to make trade-offs. Another example of ways you can sort of refine the impact in a way that better manages the cost of providing services. And lastly, we talked about reassessment. And some of the critical things to remember going forward, for some of the things I can leave you with, first of all, know what you want, okay? And make the investments that are consistent with what you want. Secondly, make sure that your capital facility plan and your land use system are being worked in tension, and that there's feedback loops between those two, that it's not a one-way trip, but you have the ability to look at the cost-benefit trade-offs. Know your cost structure and your return on investment for any particular type development. Look at location first. Make sure that you're saying yes to the things you want to, and make sure that the things that you're looking for are actually easier to do, okay, and are not harder to do. That's where you start looking at your development regulations, and you start looking at the entitlements and say, okay, if these are the things we want, if these are the things that make the best sense for the city, are they actually the easy things to do? Can we make them easier? A number of cities that have been looking at accessory dwelling units, they've looked at things like pre-approved engineering plans for accessory dwelling units so that it's easier for small-scale developers to get into the business, okay, because they don't have to do the engineering drawings. I think one of the best practices the city started in a few years ago was the changes they made to allow restarting neighborhood commercial. If you've ever been to Wisconsin Burger, that's a good example of that implementation of that program where you're able to restart a neighborhood business. So lastly, the last thing to remember is that for every developer, for every development that's occurring, you need to think like an equity partner and not like a regulator, because you've got skin in the game. You're making a financial commitment to the success of that project, and that will be a commitment that you'll have as long as that's inside the city. So know what it's costing you, know what you're getting out of it, and make sure you're investing in things you want. So with that, I'm open for questions.
Any questions for Dave Anderson? And if you take down your screen, Dave, then I can see the group a little better.
I need to find the.
Let's see.
I'm trying to get back to the.
That's all right.
I'll take it down.
Council members, if you have questions, go ahead and just, or comments.
I just want to make time for Mr. Sir. I think he had some information to share as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you, Councilperson Mom. I didn't have anything prepared, but I was here for questions. I know that, there have been questions in the past about water service planning. My previous life, I worked at Department of Health and was in the Office of Drinking Water doing water system planning. And so I'm pretty well versed in the City of Spokane's water system plan and water system planning in the county in general. So I wanted to make sure I was here to answer any questions of that nature should they arise.
I'll kick it off.
Yeah.
One of the things, if I may, Ben, is, we wear two hats. We are council for the municipality of Spokane, but then we sort of serve as a quasi-water board that serves outside the city of Spokane. So we get a lot of questions about extending water in areas maybe that are not even in our jurisdiction or won't be. But we still remember that we're trying to do efficient use of taxpayer money to just what Dave was explaining. Just getting, quote, a free puppy ends up having a whole lot of costs for the next 10 to 15 years, including those vet bills. So as we go forward now looking at our water policy plan, which we are about to do with a consultant, what advice can you give us?
Well, I guess I'll reflect on kind of how the system was working prior to the last water system plan and how it's working now. So prior to the current system, the City of Spokane's water system plan, and I guess maybe I should back up a little further, the county has a coordinated water system plan that covers 2/3 of the county, kind of the northern part of the county. Within that, there are established future service areas. And future service areas are specific to coordinated water system plans. So those are areas that are designated for a water system to serve at some point in the future. And the purpose for it is so there's not confusion as water systems expand who's going to be serving that area. It allows for a controlled path forward in terms of determining service. Then you've got your retail service area. With the retail service area comes a duty to serve. And so if you get a request within your retail service area, there's some exceptions where you don't have to serve, but basically if somebody requests service and is willing to pony up the cost to extend the service to that site, then the city is obligated. So what was happening previously was the city had tied their retail service area to the urban growth area. And so if there were changes in the urban growth area within the City of Spokane's future service area, then that changed the city's duty to serve for that area. And so the county was changing the urban growth area, which changed your duty to serve. And what was happening was there were properties that were being vested before the expansions could be challenged, and then that then put the onus on the city to provide service to these places. And it was problematic, and this kind of goes back to what Dave was saying, is you get these little islands kind of out in the middle of nowhere that vested, and you'd have to run a pipe all the way out there, but there weren't connections along the way. And so the cost to the city to provide that service goes up significantly when you don't have those connections along the way, where you put a long pipe out there, it has to be pretty big to supply the appropriate pressures, and then you don't have any cost sharing in between. So that was problematic. And so in the last round of the water system plan, the council chose to tighten in the retail service area and basically make it where current service is right now. And then if there was a request for service, then there would go through a process that you're all probably familiar with, where you evaluate whether or not you're going to honor that request. So that is kind of the history around where we're at now. I think the way the city is doing it is sound. I think, it may be a little bit onerous on your part because you do need to amend your water system plan every time you do need to make one of those changes. And so, one thing you may want to consider is identifying where the places are that you would likely want to serve that you think are reasonable in terms of the costs it would take. So you could bump out your retail service area slightly if that was an appealing approach. And it may cut down on some of the administrative burden in terms of amending the water system plan and having to make a council decision every time a request came in, if you could identify some of these places where you think it makes sense when you go through the next process. Yes, question.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. So you were talking about in the past where you had issues with vesting and why you may not want the UGA and water retail service area to match up. But when there's no issues at present with vesting, and there won't be for another year or two, probably at the earliest, why would you not want to match up your retail water service area with the UGA, which is where we're supposed to direct growth, is inside that boundary? We face a housing crisis, and according to the economists at Eastern, we're far exceeding OFM population projections. So why would you not want to simply match it up with the UGA and be able to serve urban growth within that urban growth boundary?
For me, I think the reason would be control. The city still isn't in control of where the UGA is expanded to. So if you're okay with whatever boundary the county sets, that's okay. I think that history shows that was problematic, and I think that was kind of the reaction in the past. I haven't seen, in all the other water system plans I ever reviewed, nobody was setting it to where the UGA, was. And so, maybe I should specify, it was, it changed when the UGA changes. So it'd be one thing to identify this is where the UGA is. We're comfortable with setting that. This is where we're setting our retail service area. That's not how it was for the city of Spokane previously. It was set to the retail service area is whatever the current UGA boundary is. And so it was dynamic. I guess I would advise against the dynamic approach. I think it would be okay if you evaluated this is the UGA as it sits now, and we want to adopt this boundary for our retail service area based on that UGA. I think that would be a better approach than a dynamic retail service area that follows the UGA wherever the county puts it.
Councilmember Mumm.
Is there any guarantee that the UGA is going to be given to the city of Spokane? Can't it be given to other jurisdictions?
That would be a topic of the countywide planning policies.
Yeah, because I've always heard there's no guarantee that it would be ours. And I know.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to have a process where the retail service area always matched the UGA, what you could establish is a set of procedures where a change to the retail service area is a precondition for a final decision on the UGA, where the city, as you know, one of the things you have to do when you're looking at urban growth areas is to have that conversation about who's going to provide the adequate public facilities. And if you have that conversation and the city makes the choice as a result of that conversation that expanding the retail service area into this proposed area is a decision, and the city can make that commitment with their eyes open, then that can be done as part of the process of examining the urban growth area. At that point, the city is not sort of beholden to whatever the decision the county makes unilaterally, but it is a joint conversation between all of the service providers and the county that's exercising the land use jurisdiction over who and under what conditions will different kinds of services and facilities be provided. One of the things that you might want to look at is also understanding where can you connect right now with the pipes that you physically have in the ground, which is necessarily going to probably be different than even your retail service area. And I would look at the areas that you're already serving, and I would ask that question for a number of different capital facilities and kind of see how they overlay, okay? What is the footprint of this particular system? What is the footprint of your sewer system? What is the footprint of your water system? And see where they overlap. And if there are gaps where we're providing sewer but we aren't providing water, or we've got a heavy investment in the road system but there's no sewer and water, those are probably good places to be looking at next to get to the point where where the services are overlapping, so that you're making the land more available for development, and you don't have land that is partially authorized because it's got sewer but doesn't have water, or vice versa.
And isn't that better for the taxpayer overall? Isn't that why we do it? Yeah.
We say, and there might be some practical limitations on some of that, and there might be good reasons why there's some gaps, but that would be worth examining. Kind of similar to the integrated capital facility planning approach the city's been taking, which is really a statewide model, I think.
Mr. Sir, I think you raised your hand there.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, one of the things that we're seeing right now in a conversation around the county and Airway Heights and the city of Spokane with regard to a UGA swap is the provision of services and who that would go to and who would be eligible for annexation. In this particular case, the site is within the city of Spokane's future service area, which gives the city of Spokane basically the first right of refusal for supplying water services there. And I believe the city in your code has provisions for annexation agreements when you agree to provide water. And so that is causing some, I don't know how I should categorize it, but some confusion around what the development process would be going forward. There have been talks about currently the UGA that's being proposed to be swapped is allocated for the city of Airway Heights, but it would be going to a place that is in the future service area, city of Spokane. And with the annexation agreement provisions that you have, it makes it unclear as to who would end up actually being able to annex that area. And the city of Airway Heights is not keen on giving up their portion of UGA if it then goes into the city of Spokane. So, yeah, it makes it a little bit unclear, and I think that has to be resolved. That could be resolved a number of ways. It could be resolved through changes to the coordinated water system plan. That is not a very quick and easy process, but it is something that could be done. Or there could potentially be some sort of MOU or MOA between the parties, potentially. But right now, it's it's not very clear as to who would be the service providers who would be eligible to annex the land.
All right. So we're pretty much over time, but this has been so helpful. So thanks to the two of you for presenting to us, engaging with us, and it's great to know that you have got a lot of local knowledge and expertise and that we can work with you. So thanks so much. And thanks, Councilmember Mumm and Kara Odegaard for helping coordinate this and this whole series. I just wanted to mention two things quickly on budget and ARP. So on budget, we did get the mayor's budget. It didn't seem to have many changes from the preliminary, despite lots of council feedback at the workshops. And the council budget work group is working with our financial staff on council on the punch list of potential changes that we're going to bring to all of you council members at a study session coming up on the 18th. And we'll be in touch before then, but any changes that you would like to see in the budget, just send them to Matt Boston. And on ARP, we are very hopeful that next week at study session, we will have a list of 8 or 9 first out proposals for ARP with some brief information about, so we can take the temperature on council on those. We've shared them with the administration for their feedback. So hopefully next Thursday, we'll have an extended time on ARP. And so with that, I will just encourage everyone to take care of themselves and have a good weekend. And we'll see folks at our Monday committee meetings and briefing and legislative sessions. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.